Caleb Morgan had always been known as a young cowboy who worked hard but sometimes acted faster than he thought. He lived on a quiet ranch near the wide, open lands of the Apache people. The ranch was miles away from any big town, surrounded by tall grass, dusty roads, and the sound of cattle moving slowly under the warm sun. Caleb enjoyed the freedom of the land. He loved riding his horse across the fields, feeling the wind on his face, and living each day with simple tasks and simple joys. But Caleb also had a habit that often brought him trouble. He reacted quickly when he felt challenged, and he sometimes tried too hard to show others that he was brave. The older cowboys at the ranch would laugh and tell him, "Boy, one day your quick hands or quick mouth will put you in a corner you can't get out of." Caleb usually smiled and ignored their words, believing he always had things under control. One warm afternoon, Caleb rode into the small trading post town nearby. The town was little more than a few wooden buildings, a well, and a single dusty street. But it was a place where people from different communities came to buy supplies, trade goods, or simply rest. Ranchers, travelers, shopkeepers, and sometimes Apache families visited the same place. Everyone knew that peace and respect were important here. No one wanted trouble, and no one wanted misunderstandings. Caleb tied his horse outside the trading post and stepped inside. The room smelled of leather, dry goods, and fresh coffee. A few men stood around talking quietly. In the corner, an Apache father and his young son were examining some tools. Nearby, another Apache man, Taza, was talking to the shop owner. Taza was calm, strong, and carried himself with dignity. Many people in town respected him because he never caused problems and always spoke politely. Caleb noticed Taza wearing a beautifully decorated handmade Apache shirt. The shirt had colorful patterns made with skill and care. It was clear that someone had spent many hours creating it. The cloth looked special, almost ceremonial, as if it carried meaning beyond ordinary clothing. Caleb didn't understand its importance, but he admired it silently. As Caleb waited for the shop owner, a few cowboys he knew walked in. They joked loudly, pushing each other as they moved. One of them nudged Caleb and said something teasing, trying to make him react in front of everyone. Caleb, trying to show he wasn't afraid of anyone, raised his voice slightly. His tone became sharper than he intended. It wasn't meant for Taza, but the moment changed the air in the room. The shop owner asked everyone to calm down, but the teasing continued. Someone joked that Caleb shouldn't act brave only when people nearby were peaceful. Another man laughed and said, "Show us that cowboy spirit you're always bragging about." They didn't mean harm. They were just careless with their words. But to Caleb, it felt like a challenge he needed to answer. Taza stood nearby, quietly watching the exchange. He could sense the rising tension, even though he had nothing to do with it. As he turned to step away, Caleb, still feeling the pressure to look strong, reached out without thinking. In his attempt to make a dramatic gesture or lighten the tension, he grabbed the edge of Taza's shirt. The moment was quick, just a few seconds, but it felt much longer. The cloth, delicate and handmade, tore at the seam. The sound was soft, but sharp enough to freeze everyone in the trading post. Caleb's hand dropped immediately, as if the fabric had burned him. His face changed from confidence to shock. He hadn't meant to damage anything, and he certainly hadn't meant to disrespect anyone, but intentions didn't matter in that moment. The room fell silent. Even the cowboys who had been joking earlier grew still. The shop owner looked troubled. The Apache father and son in the corner both turned to see what had happened. Taza looked down at the torn part of his shirt. He didn't shout. He didn't step back. He simply examined the damage with a calm but heavy expression. His eyes did not show anger, but there was deep hurt. Hurt not because of the tear alone, but because the shirt held meaning. Caleb tried to speak. I'm sorry. I didn't mean." The words stuck in his throat. He wished he could take back the last few seconds. He wished he had listened to the older cowboys who told him to think before he acted, but wishing didn't fix anything. Taza slowly lifted his eyes and looked at Caleb. His face was calm, almost too calm. That calmness made Caleb even more uneasy. Taza didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply gave a small nod, as if acknowledging the situation, and walked toward the door. Before stepping outside, Taza said softly, "This shirt was made with respect." It was not just clothing. His tone was not angry, just honest. Then, he walked out. The door closed gently behind him, but the quiet inside felt heavy. No one moved. No one knew what to say. The shop owner let out a slow sigh and shook his head. "Caleb, that shirt wasn't just made for wearing. It has meaning. You should have been careful." Caleb felt a deep, sinking feeling in his chest. He wanted to chase after Taza and apologize again, but something stopped him. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was fear of making things worse. He just stood there, staring at the door. The Apache father walked past Caleb with his young son. He didn't say anything harsh, but he gave a look that made Caleb feel even smaller. It was a look that said, "You have done something serious, even if you don't understand how serious." The cowboys who had pushed Caleb into showing bravado now stood awkwardly. They didn't tease him anymore. One of them muttered, "You didn't mean to do it." But his voice faded because he knew the accident didn't erase what had happened. When Caleb finally stepped outside, he saw Taza already riding away down the dusty road, moving toward the Apache lands. The sight made Caleb's stomach twist. He had a feeling this wasn't the end of the matter. He knew he had caused a problem bigger than a torn shirt. He didn't know how to fix it. He didn't even know how deep the mistake ran. He mounted his horse and rode back to the ranch slowly, unable to stop thinking about Taza's calm expression. The image stayed with him like a shadow that wouldn't leave. That evening, the ranch felt unusually quiet. The older cowboys noticed Caleb's troubled look and asked him what happened. When he told them, they didn't scold him. They simply lowered their heads. One of them placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder and said, "Son, the Apache people value their traditions. A handmade shirt like that is more than just cloth. It carries history. Family meaning. You tore something important today." Caleb didn't sleep that night. He kept replaying the moment in the trading post. He wished he had stepped back instead of reacting. He wished he had kept his hands to himself. Every sound outside the ranch house, every rustle of wind, every distant horse step made him think. He wondered what Taza would do. He wondered how the Apache community would react. But more than anything, he wondered how he could make things right. The mistake was small in action but large in meaning. And Caleb, for the first time in a long while, felt the true weight of a moment he could not undo. The night after the incident felt unusually long for Caleb. Even the familiar sounds of the ranch horses moving gently, the soft breeze passing through the grass, the distant call of an owl could not bring him peace. He lay in his small bunk, staring at the wooden ceiling, replaying the moment when he tore Taza's shirt. His heart kept sinking every time he remembered the calm, almost painful expression on Taza's face. Caleb knew he had done something wrong, but he didn't fully understand how deep the mistake was. He only felt the weight of it pressing on him. By early morning, Caleb stepped outside to start his usual chores. The sun was still low, and everything was quiet. Normally, he enjoyed this peaceful time. But today the silence only reminded him of the tension in his mind. He fed the horses, checked the water barrels, and helped fix a loose fence post. But no matter what he did, his thoughts kept circling back to the trading post. The older cowboys on the ranch noticed his distracted mood. They exchanged quiet looks but didn't say much. They knew Caleb had learned a hard lesson, and pushing him wouldn't help. Still, the air around the ranch felt different. Everyone sensed something was coming, they just didn't know what. Around mid-morning, a rider approached the ranch from the direction of town. It was Samuel, the local trader who often traveled between the settlement and nearby communities. Samuel was friendly and well-liked, and he knew how to read the land better than most people. But today, his horse was moving fast, and his expression looked serious. Caleb and a few ranch hands stepped forward as Samuel pulled his horse to a stop. Dust rose around him as he caught his breath. "I've got news," he said, his voice low but steady. "Taza returned to his people last night. They're upset." Caleb felt a chill run through him. He swallowed hard before asking, How upset? Samuel looked around at the ranch workers, making sure everyone understood the seriousness of what he was about to say. This morning, some travelers told me they saw groups of Apache riders gathering. Not just a few, a large number. He paused. Maybe close to 200. The words hung in the air like a slow-moving cloud. The ranch hands froze, unsure how to react. They weren't afraid of the Apache people. They respected them and kept their distance. But hearing that so many Apache riders were gathering at once was unusual. It meant something significant was happening. Caleb's heart thumped in his chest. "They're coming here?" he asked softly. "I don't know yet," Samuel replied. "But folks in town are worried. There's talk that they're trying to understand what happened at the trading post." Caleb looked down at the ground. The weight of the situation grew heavier. He had never imagined that one careless moment could spread news so far, so fast. The idea that so many people might be upset because of him left him feeling small and ashamed. The ranch owner, Mr. Holden, stepped out from the main house after hearing the commotion. He was an older man, with a steady voice and a calm presence. "What's going on out here?" he asked. Samuel repeated the news. Mr. Holden listened quietly, his eyes narrowing in thought. When Samuel finished, Mr. Holden nodded slowly. "I see," he said. "Well, panic won't help us. We need to stay calm and respectful." Some ranch hands shifted uncomfortably. Caleb felt responsible for making everyone uneasy. Mr. Holden turned to him. "Caleb," he said gently, "you made a mistake. But you must not run from it. Running makes things worse. Facing it with sincerity is the only way forward." Caleb nodded, though his voice failed him. He wasn't sure he had the courage to face Taza and his people, especially if so many were involved. But he also knew Mr. Holden was right. He couldn't hide from what he had done. As the day passed, rumors continued to swirl. A few ranchers rode by to warn the ranch about what they had heard. Some townspeople packed their wagons, planning to stay with relatives farther away until things felt settled again. Others stayed, believing the Apache community would not act without speaking first. But even those who believed in peace couldn't help feeling nervous. Caleb tried to do his chores, but his hands trembled every time he thought about what Samuel had said. 200 riders. It was hard to imagine that many people preparing to approach the settlement because of something he had done. By late afternoon, the sky grew warm with orange and pink colors as the sun began to set. Caleb sat near the corral, watching the horses move slowly inside their fence. His mind stayed restless. The older cowboys came and sat with him, offering quiet company. They didn't talk about the torn shirt. They didn't talk about the gathering riders. They just sat beside him, letting him know he wasn't alone. As evening approached, a soft breeze picked up, carrying distant sounds across the land. Some thought they heard the faint echo of horse hooves far away, but it could have just been the wind. Still, the possibility made everyone more alert. After dinner, the ranch workers gathered outside to discuss what they should do. Mr. Holden remained calm and told them not to make assumptions. "The Apache people are wise," he said. "They don't act without thought. They will come peacefully if they want to talk. And if they come, we will listen." Caleb stood slightly behind the group, unsure where he belonged. He felt caught between guilt and responsibility. He knew that if the Apache people came to speak, he would have to face them. He knew he would need to apologize not from fear, but from truth. As the group talked, Samuel returned from town again, this time with more details. "I spoke to another traveler," he said. "He said the riders are moving slowly, not in a hurry. They seem organized, calm, not angry. It looks like they might come tomorrow morning or sometime soon." Mr. Holden nodded. "Then, we'll be ready to welcome them." Mr. Holden, Mr. Holden, Mr. Holden, Mr. Holden nodded, 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 nodded. Everyone agreed, though some felt nervous. The idea of so many visitors coming at once was unfamiliar, but not frightening. Still, they couldn't deny that the situation was serious. Later that night, as everyone prepared to rest, Caleb walked alone to the fence overlooking the open land. The moon shone bright above him, lighting up the fields with a soft silver glow. In the distance, the land stretched wide and silent. But Caleb felt as if the horizon held something waiting. He thought about Taza again, the calm eyes, the quiet steps, the dignity he carried. Caleb wished he could speak to him right now, explain his mistake, and show that he understood his wrongdoing, but he knew the chance would come soon enough. All he could do was wait. The night air felt cool against his skin. Caleb closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know what the gathering riders wanted, or how they would choose to handle the situation, but he did know one thing. When they came, he would not hide. He would stand there and face whatever came next. With honesty in his heart, he returned to the bunkhouse and lay down again, but this time, he didn't toss and turn like before. Instead, he lay still, listening to the night. He understood now that peace required understanding and sincerity. He hoped he would be strong enough to show both. As the ranch lay quiet under the moonlight, everyone sensed that the next day would bring something important. A meeting. A conversation. Perhaps a lesson. The land seemed to wait with them. Wide and patient. Holding the story that was about to unfold. The next morning arrived with a soft, golden light spreading across the ranch. Caleb woke earlier than usual. Even before the rooster made a sound, he couldn't shake the feeling that this day would change something in his life. He stepped outside and looked at the horizon. The sky was clear, and the cool air touched his face gently. Everything felt calm, but there was a quiet expectation in the air, like the land itself was waiting. A few ranch hands joined him and began their usual morning tasks, but everyone worked with a kind of focused silence. They all knew the Apache riders might arrive today. No one wanted to talk too much or guess what would happen. They simply wanted to stay ready and respectful. Caleb helped prepare the horses, though his hands trembled slightly. He tried to hide it, but some of the older cowboys noticed. They didn't say anything. They knew that Caleb was doing his best to stay steady. By mid-morning, the sun had risen high enough to warm the land. A soft breeze carried dust across the ground, and the cattle moved slowly in the fields. Everything looked normal, but Caleb felt anything but normal inside. Then, one of the ranch hands, standing near the fence, called out quietly, "Look." Everyone turned. In the far distance, small shapes appeared on the horizon. At first, they were tiny shadows, like moving dots across the land. But as the minutes passed, the shapes grew clearer. Horses, many horses. They moved slowly, calmly, in a long, organized line. The riders were coming. Caleb felt his heart thump heavily in his chest. It was not fear, more like a mix of nervousness, guilt, and responsibility. The older cowboys walked forward, standing beside Caleb. Mr. Holden stepped out of the main house and watched quietly. As the riders came closer, the sight became breathtaking. They moved with perfect coordination, side by side, their horses steady and graceful. The group stretched across the open land like a flowing river of motion. They did not move in a rush. They moved with purpose. There was no loud sound, no raised voices, just the steady rhythm of hooves on the ground. The ranch workers stood in a respectful line, waiting. No one stepped forward yet. They knew the visitors would choose how to begin. When the riders reached the ranch, they formed a wide circle at a comfortable distance. Nearly 200 riders, men, elders, young people sat calmly on their horses, their expressions thoughtful and focused. The atmosphere remained peaceful. There was no sign of anger or unrest, just presence. A strong, quiet presence that carried meaning. Caleb stood near the center of the ranch group. His breath felt heavy, but he tried to stay steady. He remembered Mr. Holden's words. Sincerity was the only way forward. From the group of riders, 3 elders began to move forward. With them was Taza, riding his horse with the same calm expression he had shown at the trading post. His posture was upright, his face steady, and his eyes quietly observant. The four riders approached the ranch slowly, and then stopped a few steps away from Caleb and the other ranch hands. A soft wind passed between them, making the moment feel even more still. Mr. Holden stepped forward first, adding a silent greeting by placing a hand over his chest. The elders nodded gently in return. Then, one of them spoke, his voice calm and warm. "We have come to understand what happened," he said. "We wish to hear the truth." Mr. Holden turned slightly toward Caleb, giving him a chance to step forward. Caleb knew this moment was his. He took a breath, though his nerves trembled inside him, and stepped ahead. "I'm Caleb Morgan," he said softly, "and I'm responsible for what happened at the trading post." The elders listened with patient eyes. Taza watched him, calm as ever. Caleb continued, choosing his words carefully. "I acted without thinking. I grabbed the shirt, and it tore. I didn't understand how important it was. I know I disrespected something meaningful. I'm truly sorry." He didn't rush his words. He didn't try to excuse himself. He simply spoke from the heart. The elders looked at each other quietly. Then the one in the center asked, "Do you understand why the shirt mattered?" Caleb lowered his eyes for a moment before looking up again. "I didn't understand before. I only learned afterward that the shirt was made with care and meaning. I'm sorry I didn't respect that." The elder nodded. "The shirts made in our families carry stories. They are made with time, with the hands of loved ones, and with memories. When something like this is harmed, it brings sadness." Caleb nodded slowly. "I understand now. I want to make things right, whatever way I can." The riders behind the elders remained quiet, listening. There was no tension in their faces, only awareness, like people who were waiting to see if sincerity could build understanding. Taza finally spoke, his voice gentle. "When the shirt tore, I felt sadness because it was made by my family. But I also saw your face. I saw that you did not mean to harm anything. I saw that you regretted it." Quote. Caleb felt his eyes warm with emotion. "I truly did," Taza nodded. "Our people came with me to show support and to make sure we understood the situation clearly. Not to cause fear, but to show that our traditions matter." Mr. Holden stepped forward again. "We respect your traditions," he said honestly. "And Caleb is ready to do whatever is needed to make things right." The elders looked at Caleb thoughtfully. Then one of them said, "Instead of asking for payment or apologies alone, we offer a different path." Caleb felt a quiet hope rise inside him. "What path?" he asked softly. The elder continued, "You will spend some days with us. You will see how our people live, how we work, and how we create the things that hold meaning. You will help rebuild what was lost. By learning, you will understand." Caleb swallowed, not out of fear but out of the weight of responsibility. "I accept," he said immediately. Mr. Holden nodded proudly. The ranch hands relaxed, grateful that calm understanding filled the air. The elders looked at Caleb with warm approval. Taza gave him a small nod, an invitation, not a demand. The riders behind them began to shift gently, but still quietly. The atmosphere remained peaceful, almost warm. There was no anger, no raised voices, no tension, just a serious but fair decision made with wisdom. Caleb looked at the elders and Taza and said, "Thank you for giving me a chance." The elder closest to him smiled softly. "Understanding is better than anger. Learning is better than distance. When people come together with sincerity, mistakes can become lessons." The circle of riders slowly opened, making space for Caleb to join them. He walked toward them with steady steps, though his heart beat fast. The path in front of him felt new and unfamiliar, but also important. As he mounted his horse to ride with the Apache group, he glanced back at the ranch. The ranch hands watched him with calm faces. Mr. Holden gave him a reassuring nod. Then Caleb turned toward the open land and rode beside Taza. The long line of riders moved with steady grace, heading back toward their community. The land stretched wide before them, carrying the promise of learning, understanding, and a chance to repair what had been broken. Caleb didn't know exactly what he would experience in the days ahead, but he knew one thing for sure. He had taken the right step, and with each step forward, he hoped he would grow into someone wiser. Someone who understood the true meaning of respect. Caleb rode with the Apache group as they moved across the open land. At first, he felt unsure and quiet, unable to imagine what the next few days would be like. The riders moved in a long, steady line, their horses walking calmly over the soft ground. The breeze was gentle, and the sun sat high behind thin clouds. The journey felt peaceful, almost comforting, even though Caleb's heart still carried the weight of his mistake. Taza rode beside him. Neither spoke much during the beginning of the ride. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It felt more like a space for thinking and understanding. Every now and then, Taza glanced at Caleb, offering a small, calm look that made Caleb feel a little more at ease. After a couple of hours, the group reached a beautiful valley. It was wide and green, with tall trees that rustled softly in the wind. In the center of the valley stood the Apache camp. Children played near small homes made of wood and hides. Women worked on crafts, cooking, or sorting belongings. Men were busy taking care of horses or preparing tools. The entire place felt alive with peaceful activity, warmth, and community energy. As the riders entered the valley, people stopped their work and looked up. They didn't stare with suspicion or discomfort, only curiosity and gentle interest. They noticed Caleb riding near Taza, and they understood he was here to learn, not to cause disturbance. One of the elders welcomed Caleb into the camp with a warm gesture. "You are our guest," he said kindly. "You will stay with us, and you will learn from us." Caleb nodded gratefully. He felt nervous but also honored. He wanted to show respect and put sincere effort into everything he did here. Taza guided him to a small space near one of the homes. "You can rest here," he said. "Later, we will begin." Caleb placed his pack down and looked around. The valley was peaceful, filled with soft sounds, the laughter of children, the crackling of firewood, the calls of birds in the trees. He felt far from the ranch, but in a strangely comforting way. This place felt connected to the land, history, and tradition. Soon, Taza invited him to meet his family. His mother welcomed Caleb with a gentle smile, showing kindness without hesitation. His father, calm and wise-looking, greeted him respectfully. It surprised Caleb how warmly they treated him, considering what had happened. He felt humbled by their generosity. Taza's mother showed him pieces of cloth, beads, and threads used for crafting traditional garments. She explained, in simple words, how each color and shape held meaning. She didn't speak with anger or disappointment. She spoke with patience, like a teacher sharing something precious. Caleb listened with full attention. He could feel the emotion behind every word. He realized that the torn shirt wasn't just something made with hands, it was made with love, care, and connection to family. The next day, Caleb began helping Taza with daily tasks. They gathered materials from the land, soft plant fibers, strong threads, natural dyes. Caleb learned how much work went into preparing even the smallest part of a traditional shirt. It took patience, steady hands, and respect for nature. While they worked, Taza explained the story behind patterns and designs. Some lines represented journeys or family past. Some shapes represented harmony, unity, or gratitude. Caleb had never thought of clothing this deeply before, and the learning opened a new place in his heart. One afternoon, Taza invited Caleb to sit with him near a peaceful stream. The water moved slowly over smooth stones, shining under the sunlight. They sat in quiet for a while before Taza spoke. "When the shirt tore," he said softly, "I felt sadness. But I also saw your regret, and I believed you could understand." Caleb nodded. "I was careless. I didn't think. But being here, I realize how important everything is. I'm grateful you allowed me to learn." Taza smiled gently. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how they choose to correct them. Caleb took the words to heart. He felt lighter, even though he still wished he could go back and stop himself from grabbing the shirt. But he knew he was doing everything he could now. That was what mattered. Over the next few days, Caleb helped Taza and his family begin creating a new shirt. He carefully dyed the threads under Taza's guidance, learning how to mix colors naturally. He practiced weaving small pieces, even though his first attempts were uneven. Taza's mother encouraged him with patient instructions, helping him improve slowly. Working together created a quiet bond between them. Caleb felt respected, not judged. He felt welcomed, not pushed away. He grew to admire the community's harmony, where everyone worked together and shared responsibilities. During evenings, after the day's work was done, the community gathered near warm fires. They shared stories about the land, family memories, moments of joy, and lessons passed down through generations. Caleb listened closely, enjoying every word. He learned that traditions were not just old habits. They were ways of keeping connection alive. Sometimes Taza asked Caleb about his life on the ranch, how he grew up, what he loved about the land, and what he hoped for his future. Caleb felt comfortable sharing his thoughts. For the first time, he felt like he was talking to someone who truly understood the land as deeply as he did. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Taza handed Caleb the finished shirt. It was beautiful, shining softly in the fading light. The colors blended smoothly, and the patterns held a gentle strength. Caleb felt honored to even touch it. Taza turned the shirt over, showing a small section Caleb had helped weave. "This part is yours," he said kindly. "You helped make this. Your work is part of the story now." Caleb felt emotions swell inside him. "Thank you," he whispered. "I will never forget this." The next day, it was time for Caleb to return to the ranch. The Apache community gathered to say goodbye. Many people smiled warmly at him. Children waved. Taza's parents thanked him for working with them sincerely. Caleb bowed his head respectfully to each of them. Taza rode beside him as they traveled back across the open land. The journey was quiet and peaceful. When they reached the ranch, the workers came out to greet them. They were surprised, but in a good way, to see Caleb riding beside Taza like a friend. Mr. Holden walked forward with a calm smile. "Welcome back, Caleb," he said. "And welcome, Taza." Taza nodded politely. "Caleb learned well," he said proudly. "He understands now." The ranch workers smiled with relief and respect. Caleb felt his chest warm with gratitude. He knew he had returned a different person. Wiser, calmer, and more aware. After saying goodbye to Caleb, Taza turned his horse and began the journey back. Caleb watched him leave, feeling a bond that would stay with him forever. In the days and years that followed, Caleb often remembered his time in the Apache Valley. Whenever he worked, rode, or spoke to others, he carried the lessons with him, lessons about respect, understanding, patience, and the importance of thinking before acting. People in the region heard the story of the torn shirt and the gathering of riders. Some retold it with surprise. Others shared it as a lesson. But Caleb always corrected the story gently whenever he heard it. He never allowed anyone to speak negatively or carelessly about the Apache people. He always said, "They taught me more than I can ever repay." The torn shirt had once threatened to create distance, but instead, it created connection. It became a reminder of how mistakes can lead to understanding if faced with honesty. Years later, Caleb still remembered the valley, the sound of the stream, the laughter of children, the smell of warm earth, and the beautiful shirt that had been rebuilt with patience and care. And he never forgot the day 200 riders came, not for anger, not for conflict, but for truth, respect, and understanding.